How do you tell your daughter her love was wasted? When she poured it into every dish, I still remember the smell of butter gently browning in the cast iron skillet that morning. Chloe was humming to herself as she kneaded dough by hand, her cheeks dusted with flour, eyes focused like a seasoned cook preparing a holiday feast. She's only 16, but for 3 days straight, she transformed into a one-woman kitchen brigade, planning, prepping, and cooking for 23 guests for her grandmother Gloria's 68th birthday. "Grandma likes peaches, right?" she asked, peeling ripe fruit for her handmade peach cobbler. Nothing from a can, no shortcuts, just the full-hearted effort of a young girl who wanted to make something special for someone she loved. I watched her string ribbons across the doorway, press freshly ironed napkins into place, and write each guest's name on handmade place cards. On the table was a menu she had scripted in purple ink: Grandma Gloria's birthday, made with love and family. No one asked her to do it. She didn't expect applause or rewards. She just wanted her grandmother to smile when everyone gathered around the table. And I thought to myself, she's going to remember this day forever. And she did, but not in the way I had hoped. My phone buzzed just as Chloe was placing the peach cobbler into the oven. A text from my father. Change of plans. Doing it at a restaurant. Adults only. No apology. No explanation. I looked up. Chloe had read the same message on her phone. She stood perfectly still. The afternoon light cast a shadow across her face, catching in her wide, confused eyes. "Did I do something wrong, Mom?" I looked at her for a long moment. And then I said softly, "No, sweetheart." But they did. And right then and there, I knew this party wasn't canceled. It was about to be reborn. What do you do when a single sentence breaks your child's heart? The peach cobbler was in the oven. The table was set. And Chloe, my sweet flower-streaked Chloe, was folding the last set of napkins when her phone buzzed. I heard the sound. I heard mine too. A text from my father. I didn't need to open it to feel the chill. Change of plans. Doing it at a restaurant. Adults only. That was it. No punctuation, no kindness. Just dismissal wrapped in logistics. I looked up from my phone and met Chloe's eyes across the kitchen. She had read it too. The color drained from her face, not in a dramatic way, but like something inside her quietly stepped backward. She didn't cry. She didn't even speak at first. She just looked around the room she had spent 3 days transforming. Ribbons still fluttered from the light fixture. Handwritten menus sat carefully at each place. The peach cobbler's scent was starting to drift through the house. Finally, her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Did I do something wrong, Mom?" That question hit harder than any insult could have. I crossed the room, took her face in my hands, and looked her dead in the eye. "No, baby. You did everything right. But they just did everything wrong." She nodded once, but I could tell she didn't understand, not really. She was trying to make it make sense, trying to give them grace. I didn't scream. I didn't call. I didn't fight. I simply texted my father back one word: understood. Then I picked up the phone and began dialing. Not restaurants, not family, but people who mattered. People who had shown up before. Because Chloe had spent 3 days preparing a table. And I wasn't going to let that table stay empty, not because of someone else's pride or cruelty. If they wanted a restaurant and rules, fine. But what I had in mind was a celebration they'd never forget. And it would start right here in the home they just turned their backs on. Can healing begin with candles, food, and the people who actually show up? The house was still. Chloe had gone to her room, not out of anger, but to sit with her confusion. I let her. 16 is old enough to feel pain deeply, but still young enough to wonder if maybe it's her fault. I stood in our small kitchen, phone in hand, rereading that message from my father. Adults only. As if Chloe had been pretending. As if her hands hadn't chopped, baked, stirred, and seasoned every inch of this day. But the silence didn't last long. I had work to do. I started with Mrs. Applegate, our neighbor, who always saved Chloe's lemon bars from bake sales. Then Chloe's favorite art teacher, who had once let her stay after school just to finish decorating a cake for a fundraiser. Then the owner of the local bakery who remembered the time Chloe helped carry 20-pound flour bags inside just because she wanted to know what real kitchens felt like. By 6 p.m., I had a list of 15 people who said yes before I even finished explaining. No one does something like that for her grandmother and gets left out, Mrs. Applegate said. Tell Chloe I'm bringing my garden roses. I lit candles, turned on soft music, laid out each dish Chloe had made from her garlic rosemary chicken to her delicate mini quiches. I didn't move anything, this was her table, and it would stay that way. Then I knocked gently on her door. You still want to serve what you made, I asked. She blinked at me cautious. Just us. Not just us, I smiled. Only the people who want to be here. That's more than enough. Chloe stepped out in her apron. Her cheeks were still flushed from earlier, but there was light behind her eyes again. One by one, guests began to arrive. Not dressed up, not making a show, just smiling, holding casseroles and wine and stories. They came because of who Chloe was, not what was expected. And for the first time that day, Chloe laughed. Not politely, not nervously, but fully. She didn't need an invitation to her own celebration. We were building a new table, one where no one had to ask for a seat. What happens when joy is louder than rejection? By 8 o'clock, our backyard was glowing. The sun had dipped low, but the candles Chloe placed in old mason jars flickered like stars across the patio. The peach cobbler was resting on the windowsill, warm and fragrant. Laughter drifted up into the trees. People kept arriving. Some brought folding chairs, others brought memories. Chloe's 8th grade teacher showed up with her husband. A woman from the local craft store came with a tray of sugar cookies saying, "That girl once helped my granddaughter find courage to enter the county fair." We hadn't sent out invitations. We hadn't posted online, and yet by some quiet grace word had traveled. I caught a moment to watch Chloe from the kitchen window. Her hair was loose, her eyes bright. She wasn't just smiling, she was glowing. Something inside her had begun to mend, and I silently thanked every soul who helped stitch her back together. Then just past midnight, as I was gathering empty plates and pouring cider into mismatched mugs, I heard it. A knock, followed by another, then pounding, steady, impatient. The front door shook on its hinges like someone was rattling it with both hands. The sound cut through the music, the chatter, the warmth. The room went quiet. I looked toward the hallway. "I've got it," I said, setting down the pitcher. Chloe touched my arm gently. "Should I come with you?" I shook my head. "Stay here, honey. You've already done more than enough." I walked slowly to the door, each footstep echoing in the silence now hanging over the house. I didn't rush. I didn't speak. At the door, I paused. 10 seconds. That's how long I let them stand on the other side. Let them feel what silence tastes like. Let them wonder if they'd be let in at all. Then I opened it. Frank stood stiff as stone, arms folded, mouth tight. Gloria beside him still wore her lipstick from hours ago, her hair slightly tousled, clutching her coat like it was a shield. "You had the party here," she asked, her voice already trying to control the tone. I leaned against the door frame, calm and steady. "You're finally here. Peach cobbler's gone, though." Behind me, laughter rose again from the kitchen, unapologetic and warm. They looked past me, and what they saw was everything they'd missed. "Would you open the door to the ones who shut your child out?" They didn't step inside. Not right away. Frank stood just beyond the threshold, shifting his weight from one foot to the other like a man trying to decide if it was worth walking into a room he no longer owned. Gloria's eyes darted behind me toward the sounds of laughter and clinking dishes, sounds that should have been hers to enjoy. "You had the party here after we said," Gloria began. I held up a hand. "You said adults only, so we honored that." She blinked, confused. Frank raised an eyebrow. I continued calm as ever. "We invited the grown-ups, the ones who don't treat a 16-year-old like staff." Frank's jaw tightened. It was a misunderstanding. My silence told him I didn't buy it. "She cooked for 3 days," I said softly, not to shame them, but to remind them. "She made your favorite sweet potatoes, Gloria. She made hand-rolled pastries. She set the table, ironed napkins. She even made place cards. She's a child, Frank snapped. That wasn't her responsibility. Exactly, I nodded. But she did it out of love. And what did she get? A last-minute text saying she wasn't welcome. Gloria's voice softened, her trademark tone when she knew she was losing the room. You're blowing this out of proportion, Lainey. The restaurant didn't allow minors. We didn't think it would matter. You didn't think, I said plainly. And that's the part that hurts most. They were silent now. Standing just outside the warm glow of the home their own granddaughter had filled with joy. I tilted my head. Tell me what hurts more, being excluded, or realizing the people you excluded threw a better party without you. Gloria opened her mouth, but I'd already made my choice. I stepped back just enough to show them what they'd missed: Chloe in her pajamas, laughing at the kitchen table with her art teacher. Plates stacked high, music still playing softly. There was love in that room, the kind they hadn't earned. Then gently but with finality I closed the door. Not to punish, not to slam, just to draw the line. Behind it, Chloe looked up at me, uncertain. You okay, Mom? I smiled. I'm perfect, sweetheart. Now let's reheat the mac and cheese. Because sometimes the strongest message isn't rage. It's warmth they no longer get to touch. Is silence sometimes louder than an argument? 2 days later it arrived. Not a call, not even a text. Just a thick cream-colored envelope, hand-delivered by a courier from a law office with gold-embossed lettering on the flap. I knew before opening it, but I didn't expect how cold it would feel in my hands, like it had sat in a freezer before being passed to me. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one Chloe had once polished to a shine for her grandmother, and I opened it. Page after page laid out with legal precision. They weren't just angry, they were making it official. The letter spelled it all out. Chloe and I were being removed from every trust, every property deed, every future claim. The family vacation home gone. The education fund they'd promised Chloe since she was a toddler erased. And there at the bottom were the signatures, stamped, witnessed, filed. They didn't just slam the door. They had it locked behind lawyers. Chloe came in as I sat holding the final page, my hands trembling slightly. Mom, she asked, seeing my face. I didn't know how to soften it, didn't know how to spin it gentle. They cut us out, I said. All of it. She didn't blink. Instead, she walked to me, picked up the letter, skimmed it, and let out a small breath. Good, she said, folding it neatly. That one word pulled me back. Good, I echoed. Chloe nodded. They did it the night they told me I wasn't invited. This is just them admitting it on paper. I stared at her, at this girl who had baked through heartbreak, stood tall through disappointment, and now was holding rejection like it was just another recipe to rewrite. I'm proud of you, I whispered. She shrugged, then smiled. I think I'm starting to be proud of me too. Outside, wind rustled the trees. Inside, there was still warmth, still music, still us. Because a door doesn't define a family. A signature doesn't erase love. And being written out doesn't mean we disappear. It means we're free to write something new. What if the voice they silenced becomes the voice others needed to hear? It started with a blog post. Someone who had been at the backyard dinner, an old friend of Chloe's art teacher, wrote a short piece online. She titled it, "The Girl the Birthday Forgot." It was heartfelt, honest, and simple. She didn't name names. She just told the story as she saw it of a teenage girl who spent 3 days cooking for a party she was quietly erased from. Within 2 days, it had been shared thousands of times. By the end of the week, Chloe's name was everywhere. News outlets called. Local radio stations asked for interviews. We declined them all. It wasn't about spotlight. It wasn't about revenge. But then a message arrived from a nonprofit in New York, one that supports teens impacted by family trauma. They'd read the post. They had watched our silence and Chloe's grace unfold across social media. They asked if she would speak at their annual youth gala. They would pay for travel, hotel, everything. At first, Chloe looked at me like they were speaking to the wrong person. I'm not a speaker, she said, biting her lip. I'm just a girl who got left out. I took her hand. Maybe that's exactly who needs to speak. 3 weeks later, we stood in the wings of a ballroom lit like a summer dusk. A few hundred people in suits and sequins sat in gold chairs sipping sparkling cider under string lights. Chloe walked to the microphone in the same burgundy dress she had worn the night of the backyard dinner, still with the sleeves rolled up like she was ready to bake again. She didn't read from a script. She didn't even mention my parents. "I cooked for people who said they loved me," she said simply. "And then they told me I wasn't invited." She paused, and the room held its breath. But strangers showed up instead. People who ate with me, laughed with me, and stayed. She looked out across the crowd. Maybe love isn't about blood. Maybe it's about who pulls up a chair when everyone else walks away. No one clapped right away. Not because they didn't want to, but because reverence is quieter than applause. And then slowly, respectfully, every person rose to their feet. Can one girl's hurt become a home for many others like her? The flight home was quiet, but it wasn't heavy. Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She hadn't said much after the speech. She didn't need to. Her words had already traveled farther than any of us imagined. A few days later, she came into my room with her sketch pad clutched to her chest. "I've been thinking," she said. "I want to build something." I blinked. "Like a business?" She shook her head. "Like a space. For girls like me. Girls who got left out." She flipped open the sketch pad and showed me a simple drawing, a wooden table surrounded by chairs. Above it in bold lettering she'd written, "The Table Project. For the ones no one saves a seat for," she added softly. I couldn't speak. I just reached for her hand and held it tight. We launched a simple website with those exact words, "Everyone deserves a seat. And if they don't give you one, we'll build you a table." No PR firm, no influencer campaigns, just a mission and a heart behind it. And then, people showed up. Donations started arriving, not from big names, but from teachers, retired nurses, single moms, grandfathers. Each one left a note. "This reminds me of my daughter. I wish someone had built a table for me. Tell her thank you." The local community center offered space free of charge for monthly gatherings. The bakery that once accepted Chloe's help with flour bags donated pastries for every event. By spring, Chloe was hosting regular dinners and workshops for teens. By summer, a women-led foundation awarded her a grant. By fall, a small publisher approached her about a book. We were still just two people in a quiet home, but now our kitchen smelled like purpose. One evening, as Chloe packed up gift bags for the next event, she paused. "Do you think they've seen all this?" she asked, not looking up. I didn't need to ask who they were. "I think they've seen every word." Chloe nodded. "Good. I don't need them to say anything." She taped a sticker to one of the bags. It read, "You belong here. Always." Then she went back to packing, one hand steady, the other still a little flour dusted, just the way it should be. Can forgiveness arrive wrapped in something more fragile than words? It was late October when the doorbell rang again. No pounding this time. Just a hesitant press, like whoever stood on the other side wasn't sure they were welcome. Chloe was setting the table for another gathering, this one for new girls, who had joined the table project through word of mouth. She wiped her hands and looked at me. "I'll get it," she said. I stood just behind her as she opened the door. There on the porch stood Nina, my younger sister, the golden one. The one who had always known how to please our parents, stay polished, say the right things. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back, and in her arms was a small wrinkled package wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. "I didn't come for Mom and Dad," she said, her voice catching. "I came for her." She looked at Chloe. Chloe didn't move. She just stared, unsure of what to do. Nina stepped forward slowly and handed her the package. "I found this while cleaning out a drawer. Thought you might want it." Chloe unwrapped it gently. Inside was a framed photo, two little girls in flour-dusted aprons standing in Gloria's kitchen, laughing over a bowl of cookie dough. It was Chloe and Nina. Years ago, before silence, before walls. "I was scared," Nina whispered. "Back then at the party when they said she couldn't come, I wanted to speak up. I just didn't." Chloe's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. I'm here now, Nina said, and I know it doesn't fix everything. But I didn't want you to think I was okay with what they did. Chloe reached out slowly and took her hand. No grand gestures, just a small squeeze. Thank you, she said softly. You were in the photo. Now you're here in person. That means something. We invited her in. Nina stayed for the whole evening. She helped pour cider. She sat at the edge of the circle, listening more than talking. And when Chloe stood to close the gathering, she looked at Nina for a half-second, then smiled. Later that night, Nina pulled me aside. Dad's rewriting his will, she said quietly, but I think it's too late to matter, I nodded. Because what Chloe had built here wasn't something you could inherit. It was something you had to earn. What if justice isn't revenge, but never needing their approval again? It happened quietly. No fanfare, no press. Just another voicemail from a number we hadn't answered in months. This time, it was my father. We made a mistake, his voice said. Can we talk? He didn't sound angry anymore, just tired. Like a man watching a train pull away that he was too proud to run for. Chloe listened to the message with me. When it ended, she didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She reached for the phone, deleted the voicemail, and set it down. It's not my job to help them sleep at night, she said, her voice calm. I didn't disagree. Because forgiveness is powerful, but boundaries are sacred. We hadn't set out to make a statement. We hadn't sought to embarrass anyone. We had simply protected the softest part of a girl growing into her own name. And somehow in doing so, she created something larger than any of us expected. The table project became more than a gathering. It became a movement. Girls who had once sat in the shadows were now sharing stories, baking together, writing poetry, building confidence like bread rising in warm ovens. One night, as we packed up from an event, Chloe turned to me. Do you think they'll ever get it? She asked. I paused. No, I said gently. But that's okay. You didn't build this for them. She smiled. I know. I built it for the girl I used to be. As we drove home, the headlights lit up the familiar curve of our street. I glanced in the rearview mirror and caught Chloe watching the stars out the window. Quiet, whole, and absolutely free. I thought back to that text. Adults only. And I smiled, because in trying to lock her out, they had unlocked something far greater. A table, a room, a legacy. And it no longer sat inside their house. It lived wherever Chloe chose to build it. She had written her own invitation. And this time, no one got left behind. Not even her.